Welcome to the Cherry Picker, the horror movie podcast where we like to kill people, but not really. I'm your host, Zack Cherry, and with me as always is...
Eddie of Edward is Truth.
And today we're talking about 13 ghosts.
13
and
ghosts.
Yeah. 2001, October 26, 2001 release date. And this is our 13th episode, so I wanted to do something thematically 13 to weave in with that. I'm excited.
Yeah.
This is probably, I think, like, other than doing the Who Killed Who in the Scream franchise, this is probably the episode that I've been the most excited about, and I don't even know why.
Well, that's sweet.
Yeah,
You're excited. I was looking forward to it for sure. I can't speak.
I think the thing is, because I mean, like, if I haven't expressed myself before, I hate remakes,
Yes.
horror movie remake. Like, there's very few that I actually find enjoyable, and in some cases surpass the original. That's very rare. I think that 13 Ghosts, this is not like an absolutely great movie by any means. There's a lot of things about it that really grate on me, but in terms of just being like remakes, like Dark Castle, the studio that did this movie, as well as House on Haunted Hill and House of Wax.
Well, that's not a remake.
Ghost Ship isn't a remake, but those three, those are all pretty solid remakes. I know they've been like maligned by critics and all that, but I mean, like, comparatively to everything else, and I think that the reason why they work so well is because they're not really remakes per se. They're taking a concept that, you know, for the most, like, the House on Haunted Hill and 13 Ghosts were based off of William Castle properties. Right. House of Wax is something completely different. But I don't think House of Wax wasn't William Castle. But they basically just took the basic idea and made a completely new movie about it. I think, like, House on Haunted Hill followed a structure relatively closely, but with 13 Ghosts, I actually watched the original this morning for the first time ever. I'd never seen it. It's not good. I mean, the thing with, like, William Castle is that his movies were all about, we kind of talked about this last week, when we touched upon just the way that The Exorcist was marketed. Like, William Castle was totally just all about the hype and the anticipation and the marketing. And I think with this movie, the gimmick was that you had your glasses. It was in 3D, but you had the glasses, and those allowed you to see the ghosts when you put them on throughout the movie. So that was the big draw for him.
And wasn't this the one? Maybe I don't remember if I'm remembering correctly. The for one of his movies, there was one where there were like either there were believer glasses or non-believer glasses. And, like, the believer glasses were, like, red and they illuminated stuff that were actually there. Like, they, like, enhanced the ghost experience.
Oh,
and
really?
if you wore the blue glasses, maybe I'm misremembering. Or maybe
it might be that, like, he was so extra with, like, his shit. But it was like, but people loved it. People went crazy. And the thing is, I think this was kind of the end of an era, because I was looking up, like, after I watched it, just like, this movie's so tame. Like, nothing happens in it. And I'll get to, like, comparative points in the movies of just the differences between the original and I don't even want to call it a remake, because it's so loosely a remake. But I was, like, looking up the release date, and, like, this came out, like, pretty much right before Psycho. And when you look at Psycho, and we're not going to get into Psycho here. I know that you will it'll be like half the podcast if we do. But just like that movie, I mean, today you watch it and you're just like, oh, this is just like some nice old, like, black and white movie that you'd watch with your grandma. Just like, no, at the time, like, that, like, killing Janet Leigh and, like, that whole thing in the shower, like, that was edgy for its time. Like, that was, like, damn near X-rated if there was something like that in 1960. So
I'm not even going to comment. I'll comment when we do a Psychopod.
So it's just it just really shows, like, the landscape of the genre and how far it's come, like, even from, like, 1960 to 73 with The Exorcist. So when I think of, like, what is an applicable movie to remake, I think that William Castle properties are like the perfect example of movies that should be getting remade, or horror movies that should be getting remade, because when you start to like dip into your Halloweens and your Nightmare on Elm Streets, you're basically taking a well-known property that everybody has a certain degree of expectations about, and you're never going to live up to them.
Yeah.
Ever. Like, and that's why like all like the remake trend, I mean, they're still making, I mean, not as many. I know they did.
Yeah.
Child's Play was like made, and then the new Black Christmas, which even then was that even a remake? But it's, you know, those were all flops because it was just like, you can't take someone's nostalgia and ruin it. But with like William Castle movies that are already so far removed, like generationally, like you can do whatever you want, and that's exactly what this movie does. With the 2001 13 Ghost, because the basic premise of the original was just this family, they're like falling on hard times. The wife actually never dies in it in the original. So it's like the four of them move into this house that they inherit from their uncle, who actually died. There's no twist where the uncle comes back, and
he's not the 13th ghost.
No, well, the uncle Cyrus isn't the 13th ghost in this movie, because it's Arthur. If like technically, I mean that's
technically.
We'll get to the mechanics of the story, because I think that's where the movie, if there is a failure, is where it fails. But yeah, they're just like the main character, who's like the Tony Shalhoub of the original. His character's name is actually Cyrus. So he wasn't Arthur. They like upgraded that, and Cyrus became the uncle. So he's like a museum curator, and he like sucks at life. Like he can't pay his bills, and they're just coming in and repossessing the furniture, like as the wife is on the phone, like, they're taking our furniture again. Right. And it's just like, it's like, what is this? It's like almost like slapstick, like broad comedy sort of thing. So anyway, it's the kid's birthday, like the little boy, and he wishes, like, I wish we had a home with furniture. And then they get a telegram, and it's like, you have to appear before this lawyer tomorrow. And then the lawyer, which is like the equivalent of the lawyer in this movie, is like, here's the key to your new house. But there's a caveat because it's haunted. And they're like, well, we've got nothing else going on, so we may as well move in. And it comes with a maid who I guess is who's played by
Margaret Hamilton, right? Wicked
Witch of the West, Wizard of Oz. So yeah, I don't know. I'm not going to get it too much into it. I'd rather talk about the remake.
Right. It's delightful to hear you like kind of retread those steps, though, because I have seen the original maybe 2 years ago, and I barely remember anything besides Margaret Hamilton being in it, and I remember feeling even she was like vastly kind of underutilized for what her talents are.
She was barely in it. Like and if she did appear, she just kind of like gave these like leering glances and would walk away. I don't think she had any dialogue until towards the end, but they basically took her character in the updated one, and they kind of they separated her into Maggie, the maid, and I was thinking about that, like, Maggie, is that like a play on like Margaret Hamilton, like a
oh my god, maybe.
And then also she's the Dennis Rafkin character, because she's psychic, and then also like there's little bits of Kalina, but the thing is, because there's no Uncle Cyrus in the original, like it's Uncle like Zorba, or like Play-Doh Zorba, some weird shit like that, and he is actually murdered by the lawyer, and it's like the lawyer is the villain of the movie, and it's just it's some weird shit, but I'm completely enamored by this movie, and just in terms of like what they've done with the ghosts, because the ghosts are like bullshit in the original, and here this is like the production value of not only like just the practical effects that they've used to design the ghosts and give them characters and backstory, but the house itself, like all of that. Like we've got this like steampunk looking architecture design, which is like all glass, which apparently was like a nightmare to film, just because of like reflective surfaces.
Yes, absolutely. You don't want any reflective surfaces when you're shooting with giant cameras and a full crew who all have to wear, didn't they all have to wear black so they
or
wouldn't
dark
be
clothing,
visible,
yeah.
like so it wouldn't reflect colors
They
or
pulled
white.
it off. They
Yes, they
pulled
did.
it off successfully.
At least as far as my eye could tell.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't go, oh, there's a
Yeah.
gaffer.
I was
that
looking
poor
at like on
bastard.
IMDb, and there's just like there's one scene where you can see the director's face, and I'm just like, I'm sure you can, but I'm not gonna.
Probably looks like a ghost. It's probably fine.
Yeah, you can just chalk it up to that he's the 14th ghost. But what's your history with this movie?
I had seen it probably pretty soon after its release. I didn't see it in the theater. I think my sister showed it to me, and just kind of like in the name of like, this is just frothy fun. And I watched it, and it was frothy fun. I did. I remember laughing through a lot of it, and that hasn't changed. But I liked it. But the thing is, I haven't seen it often enough. I think I've seen it, this 2001 version. I've probably seen it 4 or 5 times at this point, and I still get things that I'm like, oh, I forgot about this. What is this happening? I mean, even like twists with the story. Like I completely forgot about the twist with Kalina, and and all that mess. So, it happened to me. The disappointment happened to me all over again. But one thing that
Can you retread on what you mean by disappointment?
Oh, with Kalina?
Oh, just being disappointed with her character.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely disappointed, because it feels like a betrayal. It feels like you set this character up to, be
this like Sigourney Weaver, like
exactly, this Ripley on the sidelines who loses her beloved. And so now that you find out, I mean, spoilers, folks, now that you find out that she's actually in league with Cyrus, and seems to have been the entire time, you think, so did she manipulate this other fellow? What was his name? I don't even remember the guy's name that she was with. Damon. Did she manipulate Damon?
Well, according to because I was watching the Scream Factory Blu-ray, and they actually had an interview with the actor who played him, and I found that very peculiar. Like they had the first interview was with Shannon Elizabeth, who even her, like, she's not even in the movie that much. Like she's such a headlining star. Actually, sidebar, they also have like trailers and TV spots, and I found this particularly funny where they're just like, American Pie, Shannon Elizabeth is stuck in the house with 13 ghosts who all want a piece of her. Like, just imagine that in like the trailer voice. And I just thought, like, what a ridiculous fucking TV spot. I like, it was hilarious. But anyway, like, that was her big kind of like claim to fame before this. Is like, she's from the American Pie movies. But yeah, she's barely in the movie, but they had like an interview with her, and she was just like, oh yeah, like reliving like going to Canada to film the movie, and like she actually didn't even know that this was a remake until like halfway through, which I mean, like, I don't blame her, because it's not even really. But then they had the second interview was with the actor who played Damon, and I forget his name. It's like Matthew something, and it was funny because I was so much more interested in what he had to say about the movie, even though he's in this one scene. But he just like he just had this energy about him that it was just like I wanted to like hear him tell stories about the whole thing. But he like everything from his one scene at the beginning in the junkyard, like he had so much information about it, and just in terms of like working with Matthew Lillard and Murray Abraham, and then his death effect, which like sadly I guess like it was a really good effect, but then it didn't get to be seen because Matthew Lillard walks in front of the camera and he's like blocking it during that thing, because it's like you gotta like highlight Matthew Lillard, who's also in this movie, by the way, FYI. Now, this movie has like a really solid cast, and that's because I mean, like, because you do have Matthew Lillard, Tony Shalhoub, F. Murray Abraham, Embeth Davidtz, who I mean, like, you're just talking about like Kalina, like that's another thing, like she like, just in terms of like horror movies, like Army of Darkness, like, so she is horror movie royalty. She was also the teacher in Matilda, for anyone else who just outside of horror movie, like childhood nostalgia.
If you're familiar with Bridget Jones' Diary, she was the woman who snapped at Mark Darcy and asked Bridget, isn't she in her little bunny outfit anymore? But I don't know. But no, I adore her. She's done some incredible work.
I think, but what I think is the disappointment with her character in that twist is not so much that she did betray everybody, but just that she turned into this like pathetic.
Simpering,
yeah, she's just like, did I do good? Did I do good?
Oh my god!
I just like I pictured that. That episode of Family Guy where Meg goes to prison and then she comes back and she's this hardened criminal and she's basically running the house, and she gets Peter to punch Stewie, and he's just like hit the baby, punches Stewie, and she's like, did I do good, Meg? And that's just how I see like Kalina just like, I did everything you wanted, didn't I do a good job? And she, like, the first thing that she does is she tries to kiss him. And he's like, get off of me, you worm.
I just, I was disappointed because, well, also I think I was disappointed in her character, just in the sense that, like, oh, this is what you're in the movie for? Because already she came in, I think, over halfway through the movie, and it was just kind of like, well, what the fuck are you doing here?
Well, they
what were you waiting for?
They did establish that she was like preparing, because at the scene where they're driving to the mansion with the lawyer, or following the lawyer, you see like it's like a montage of like everyone preparing, and she's like getting her sticks of flares and her summoning spells on the reels.
The book.
Yeah.
The Ocularis is that, or the Arcanum? Is it the Arcanum?
I have no idea.
All of these words, I wrote down all these words, and I realized I have no context for them, so I don't know what is what.
Well, this is where the movie loses me, because it's, and I think it's like by the time when they do all kind of coalesce, when Kalina shows up, and then her and Maggie and Tony Shalhoub, Arthur and Dennis, and they all go to like hide out in the library because they're like, this is the safe place. Yes. And then it's like exposition time, and I don't think like the exposition was bad. Like, it was interesting because I loved, like, they were still going through all of the ghosts, but I'm just like, I don't understand what's going on here. Like, what is the uncle's end game? They don't really elaborate on that. It's just like he's just evil for the sake of being evil. Like, he wants to open this thing. But it's like,
he wants to rule hell, basically.
But they don't. But it's very, like, it's not set out very well. Like, they don't explain it, because I mean, like, because obviously he has like all the money in the world. He's got more money than God. But Samara Weaving, ready. But I'm just like, what is? What's the purpose of it? Like, it was just all these like, oh, the eye of God and blah, blah, and I'm just like, okay, like, you're throwing all these fancy words out, but like, how does it kind of weave into the story? And through like watching the features and listening to the audio commentaries, Steve Beck, the director, was very much like, we wanted to make this movie about family and just sort of like have a more of like a human element to it, and just like that's what kind of like the story will be about in the end. So it's more just like, here's the MacGuffin of just like the eye of God, and we're gonna like open up hell or whatever.
Right. But I mean, but the things that I appreciate most about the movie, I think I align with you in the sense that, like, all of the lore, it's kind of bullshit, and as they're talking through it, I'm just kind of like, yeah. At least there's visual stimuli to accompany all the exposition, and just kind of like get all 13 ghosts straight, because at that point, I don't think all 13 of them have manifested in a way where I can go like, or 12, shall we say.
Yeah.
All 12 of them have manifested in a way where I can go like, I know what the 12 ghosts look like, like, some of them the first time you get a good look at them is when she's just going down the checklist of the firstborn son, the torso, the bound woman, the withered lover. Oh, it's Arthur's line. But watching it with closed caption, he's just kind of going, God, oh God, and then, oh God. Anyway, but what I do appreciate is the grandiosity, and I think that's what I appreciate. Probably any of these Dark Castle movies at their strongest points, even the weakest fare, tend to kind of like lean into this genre feel, this insane That's the only way I can describe it. Like, all I can say is, like, well, the opening title is still like the sounds that accompany it. It is gears shifting, but you don't know that if you're watching this movie for the first time. So it actually sounds a lot more like a roller coaster, and it gets me kind of like in the mind of like a carnival at night, where I'm just kind of like, oh, I'm ready to have fun. I'm ready to, get scared, but not really, but I'm ready for like,
you know what?
ghoulies.
That's the perfect way to describe the Dark Castle remakes. They were fun, and I don't find like Rob Zombie's Halloween fun. I don't find the Nightmare on Elm Street remake fun at all. No. The Friday the 13th remake, it has fun for sure. I think that might be an exception. Yeah. But I mean, it's not the same level of fun as these movies where, like you described, like it is like a carnival. And I think like even going back to House on Haunted Hill, the movie that Dark Castle made that precedes this one, like you have the opening scene, not the direct opening scene, but where we're introduced to the Jeffrey Rush character, and he runs an amusement park, and they're going on the roller coaster, and it's like, what a wonderful way to just set up like who this guy is and what this movie is about. Like it's just like he's a trickster, and there's going to be you're basically in like on a scary spooky ride of just like random shit.
And plus the intent of the filmmaker to like deal sonically with their audience as well as visually, like I can really get on board with that.
Yeah, I really feel like these movies, like the Dark Castle ones, like really should be reevaluated, because I feel like in 2001, just like with the landscape of horror at the time, like they were so unforgiving of anything that remotely that did not meet Oscar caliber. And especially like with horror movies, it's just like, no, this is awful. Unless it was something that was like high end, like semi prestige, like The Ring, or something, because it was like Naomi Watts or things like that. And just, which I mean, like I haven't seen that movie in a while, so I don't want to say anything to that end. But just the critics were harsh. We'll just leave it at that. And I actually, it's funny that you mentioned the ghosts, because you don't get to see a lot of them. Like there's some who are more prominent than the others, but I've heard this thrown out there before, and I want to kind of like touch upon this on the podcast of just like what would you feel about if they were to ever make like a Netflix or Prime television series, like a 13 episode thing, and each episode kind of dedicated to each ghost of just like a backstory to build up to the climax. Because I mean, if people who have seen the movie, because they don't actually go into the backstories of the ghost, but there was a special feature on the original DVD that was ported over to the Blu-ray of just the history of each character, because they actually made full fleshed out stories. Like each one of them has a name. I want to go through all of them on here, because I think that they're so fascinating. I gotta find it because it's listed on IMDb. But that was all like Steve Beck.
Yeah.
No, go ahead. Yeah.
No, while you're doing that, I can answer your query about like would I want that. I'd be really really reticent about anything horror based that's coming from Netflix, but I would still watch it. But
I don't mean Netflix, but just as an example.
Exactly
just
right.
Like streamer,
any platform that I could stream 12 episodes based on or I guess 11, because we need the mother and the son, the great child and you
could do 12 episodes, because you could do like 11, and you would put those two together, and then the 13th would be like whatever it was, if they actually are recreating the Criticos family, as it were, and then to get to the last episode and kind of like the revelation of Arthur's,
or even another family, even maybe they
or
all
even another
like
scenario.
And
it doesn't have
that'd
to be.
Interesting.
It doesn't have to. You don't have to have the same mansion or anything like that, but just like the 13 ghosts kind of like thrust together into a new area, just to keep it fresh. Because I think like go ahead.
Go on.
No. You're...
Well, because maybe even because now you're making I love these talks because they make my imagination just start flourishing, because it makes me think like, and would it even have to be, it would be, so the most interesting tack would be for me for them to catch some of the ghosts, maybe very few from the movie, but they need to fill these roles. So they also find like somebody else to sit in for the firstborn son, or for the not the angry princess. I would want her to come back, but I don't know. Yeah, just to
You
kind of
wouldn't
like
want
see
her to
like,
come?
well, who's
No, I don't think
I
that
would
they.
wa- I
No, I
would.
don't. I don't.
I
No,
would
I wouldn't
want
want to.
her.
I don't want a sequel. I like this will be a remake.
Oh,
again.
a standalone thing.
But it just like a recreation of but like use the same template for all these characters.
Oh, I see. I would
Yeah.
watch that too, but I would love it if there was some connective tissue. I would want a requel. You know, I want to continue the line and not pretend like this movie doesn't exist, because there's too much fun to be had with, well, who potentially could be brought back? Well, who survived? Or who didn't survive, who could conceivably be one of the 12/13 ghosts in this new story. Like, there's so many.
I think that like I think that like what I was like how I envisioned it, it would sort of be almost like Lost, with like your kind of like flashbacks stirred into the mix, like while the present day action was going on. So in that case, like you could have the family like move into the house, and then like the first episode, and kind of like start to get a sense of like, oh, this is so wonderful, but then sort of like find something, and then it sort of like leaves you, like it goes back in time, and maybe there's like 3 flashbacks per episode of just establishing, you know, if they start if they're going in order of, you know, whatever the first one is the firstborn son. But what's interesting about each one of the, like, their stories take place at varying points in time. And obviously the withered lover is the most recent. And that actually made me think, like, and we might have talked about this before off pod, but was her death, was that fire started by
Cyrus.
Cyrus?
And his people? Like,
because it was sort of like a thing. It's like, I needed to have her as to fill the role of this ghost, and I needed to have my nephew. Because if that is the case, I mean, like, it's not really established in the movie, but that could be a twist if they did a series and be like, this is how we got the withered lover. So it was almost like he's not just like evil for the sake of opening this, but he's just like, there's actually now like personal stakes in it for Arthur and the family, of just like
it could be, but at the same time, it's one of those reveals where it's just kind of like, oh, okay.
That's how television is, though. That's how television
No,
is.
I know, but I mean, it's one of those reveals where I'm just like, well, didn't really need that. Like, I mean, he's still as much of an asshole if he hears that his like long lost nephew's wife burned up in a fire and he's bereft, and instead of calling up and offering any kind of condolences, he kidnaps the corpse or something, or absconds
They
with
didn't
it and performs
they didn't take
whatever
any corpse, so they just like encased
no, but whatever
her
ritual needs to be
spirit,
performed to ensnare that spirit in particular. I'm sure the body has to be somewhat involved, but who knows? That was even those kinds of questions. I would prefer those to be answered. Just like, so how do you trap them, and how do you know they're going to fulfill that role for you? You know, that would be really interesting, because what I get from this movie from the get-go, that would be, I don't know if it could translate. I'd be really, really happy if somebody could maybe detour a little bit but also, I don't know, keep some kind of sense of humor in it, because the one thing that I love about this movie is the tongue-in-cheek quality from the get-go. The fact that Matthew Lillard and F. Murray Abraham come on screen, and I feel like I'm watching like the Jim Carrey and the Tommy Lee Jones of this movie's Batman Forever. You know, like they're on screen, they're performing together.
Pills.
Yes,
the pills go flying up in the air in slow motion, like we're an anaconda with the nail coming out of the floor, and Matthew just being like, trying to catch them in his mouth.
And then there is a truck full of blood and a cube, you know, and we're just kind of like intrigue and Cyrus and just, you know, all of this, you know, and then juxtapose that with like the opening credits and the idealism of this family with their I love you, you know, happy birthday, get the kids. and then her EKG beeping and failing, and I miss you, Mom. I mean, I didn't time it. I should have timed it, but it's like 90 seconds or so, I would imagine, of just like
360
this
around
montage.
the room.
Yeah. Just like a 360 in the room, going from like this
it's
wonderful.
Effective. It's effective though, and that's the thing. Like, because I mean, like, we're now in a time where opening credits don't exist. Like, you get
Right.
the title of the movie. Sometimes you don't even get it until like the end, but you that if you get anything, that's the most you get, and then movie starts. And back then, I feel like that they were already starting to transition away from that. But this was, I feel that you could still have your credits if you're doing it in a way that is still effective to the storytelling. And that's all you really needed in this movie. And then you make everyone happy. You get the cast, and it's just like, oh, there's my name and the writer and all that. So
right. I would argue it goes one better than just kind of like establishing the story. It really furthers the tone. Like, all that heightened reality you were witnessing in the opening sequence, that's not going to stop. You're going to see a bunch of people slouching toward basically everyone in the movie is playing a stereotype of their character. It doesn't mean it's bad, but it means that it's just very prominent, very camp, actually. Very, and so there's basically no real depth to mine or surprises in store with anybody besides Kalina. Everybody else kind of does exactly what you would expect them to do the whole movie. Yeah. The only one who actually does surprise me is for my money, this movie's MVP, Matthew Lillard, because he's actually kind of singular, like with his own unique brand of heightened authenticity, because he's obviously playing and having fun playing, but it's also spontaneous and personal and connected. And like when he is imploring with Arthur, get your children, get them out of this house. It is so pronounced, and there's nothing it's very melodramatic, but it's also very earnest.
But that's the purpose of him just being that empath role and like what comes with the territory. I love that we get our traditional Matthew Lillard drool or spittle. Like that's basically his go-to.
Veiny forehead,
spit like dripping out on the floor. It's just like
screaming till your face is red and your mouth and chin are all wet. That's Matthew Lillard.
You're not doing horror right with Matthew Lillard unless you have those components. Anyway, okay, I have the 12 ghosts. Yes. They were the arcana, or what are we calling it?
I have all this stuff. The Arcanum, which I don't know which one that is, and I also have the Ocularis Infernum.
Well, what is the?
I think that's what he's trying to open.
It's the Dark Zodiac.
Yeah, there you go.
Because that's okay. Yeah. So essentially, you can Eddie and I are huge astrology nerds, and you can correlate each one of these to the regular zodiac signs. So this might be a fun game, but whatever. Let us know if you're watching this on YouTube or whatever, because I guess you can't comment as listening to it as a podcast. But just let us know which.
We've got an Instagram.
Of the 12 ghosts comments. Are you? Yeah. Okay, so the firstborn son, that's the first one, and just by virtue of being the first one, that is Aries. Which makes sense because that's typically like the youngest or the most immature, youthful. We won't say immature.
Arrows and arrows.
Yeah, he is the ghost of Billy Michaels, a boy who was a fan of cowboy films. One day, a neighbor found a real steel arrow in his parents' closet. He challenged Billy to a duel, with Billy using a toy gun. However, this plaything was no match for the arrow, and he died when the neighbor shot it through the back of his head. In death, Billy is in his cowboy suit and holding a tomahawk, with the arrow still protruding from his head. His ghost whispers, "I want to play." I don't remember hearing him whisper that, but...
There's a lot of whispering that goes on in this movie that is, you don't always know the source of it, and also sometimes if you're not watching it with the subtitles, it might just go right over your head.
The sound design is like, it's a bit intrusive. I'll say about this, like it's
Yeah.
It's not fun to listen. Like it's there. It actually, I guess, like physically upset a lot of people, who went to see it in the theater. I saw it in the theater. By the way, I didn't mention just when it first came out, but I know like it was just like, flashing, editing. Like the editing is not great, just in terms of just like how they cut it together, and especially like with such like amazing practical effects. Like I think like it would have been nice to showcase the spirits a little bit more than just like
absolutely
like flashing them all over. So anyway, that's the firstborn son. That's the Aries.
Okay.
So the Taurus, he is the ghost of a gambler called Jimmy the Gambler Gambino. He spent most of his days on the track making bets and brainwashed into winning. One day he made a deal with a rich businessman and so sealed his fate. When he bet heavily on a boxing match and lost, he tried to welsh on his bet and slip out of town. The mob and the winning boxer to whom he owed money caught up with Gambino and cut him into several pieces, wrapping them in cellophane and dumping the corpse into the ocean. His ghost is just his torso trying to walk around on its hands while his head lies nearby screaming within the cellophane. Ooh. Even just like the description of that imagery is terrifying.
Yeah.
And it was real life paraplegic who played the torso in the movie. And
love it when they do that.
And this was like one of the few cases, because they did use visual effects in the movie, but this is one of the few cases where they had to CGI out his head. Right. Like they had him wearing like a green or blue or whatever thing over his head, and then took that out and then like put a stump where so
we've got the bound woman.
The torso. The bound woman is the Gemini of the dark zodiac. Oh. She was a cheerleader named Susan Legros, who was born privileged and had a penchant for seducing men and tossing them away. This left a long trail of broken hearts. When her boyfriend found her cheating, he strangled her and killed the other boy. He buried her body at the 50-yard line of the local football field. The boyfriend was convicted and sentenced to death. Before his execution, he was quoted as saying, "The bitch broke my heart, so I broke her neck." Her ghost is in her prom dress, hanging suspended by the strangling implements, with her arms tied behind her back. Okay. There was actually they did mention like she was buried on the football field. Yeah, there was a little more elaborate on the DVD where they explain like it was on prom night too. Like that's why like she was the prom queen and all that. So it just a different telling of the Carrie prom, nightmare.
Yeah, proms are apparently breeding grounds for trauma and horror. What about
totally the withered lava?
Yes, we know who she is. That's Jean. We know her story, but what is she?
Cancer. She's a Cancer. So we don't need to go through her story because we know what it is.
Because we know it.
That's what you're saying. Okay, yeah.
The Torn Prince.
The Torn Prince is the Leo of the group. He is the ghost of Royce Clayton, born in 1940, who was a gifted baseball star in high school, albeit with attitude issues and a superiority complex. In 1950, what?
He's the one who's always banging the windows with his bat or whatever, right? Yeah.
Yeah, okay. In 1957, he challenged a greaser named Johnny to a drag race, but was killed as his car spun out of control and flipped over. The cause of the accident was a cut brake line. He was buried in a plot of earth that overlooked the baseball diamond. His ghost carries a baseball bat, and in the background in his cube, his wrecked car can be seen. Half of his body is torn to shreds from when he was dragged under the car.
Ooh.
So already they're like with this story, and even like the story of the what's her name, the bound woman, like there's clearly like here it sounds like someone tampered with his brake line, so it's like there's already like a really good flashback story to tell there of this ghost of just like someone, like that's the thing with all these ghosts, like they died more or less tragically. So their spirits are like pissed because it was like,
Right.
you know, a rough death. But, you know, they're so diverse, or just in terms of, like, you know, there are different periods of time taking place. Like, it sounds like this was in the 50s. I'd say the Withered Lover, that sounds more like it, you know, could have been in the 70s. The torso one, like, that could have been like, I don't know, the 20s or the 30s or something. So it's just like they're encompassing like all these different points in time of just like collecting these ghosts and you know where they come from. So that was
The Torn
Prince. So
the Angry Princess.
Angry Princess. You should have just read these with your skills.
Am I an angry princess?
Well, the Angry Princess is the Virgo. Is that you?
Yes. Fabulous. I'm so fucked up.
She is Dana Newman, who did not believe in her own natural beauty. Abusive boyfriends fueled her low self-esteem, which led to much unneeded plastic surgery for imagined defects.
Oh no. This is tragic. I'm literally feeling. I feel for her anyway.
Yeah.
But hearing her backstory is making me really sad. Keep going.
Eventually, she got a job working for a plastic surgeon, getting paid in treatments rather than cash. Alone at the clinic one night, she tried to perform surgery on herself, but wound up blinding herself in one eye and permanently mutilating herself beyond saving. She committed suicide in the bathtub by slashing her body repeatedly with a butcher knife, which I think is a kitchen knife, because that's what we see her holding, but okay. When she was found, people noted that she was as beautiful in death as she had been in life. Her ghost is naked, still carrying the knife she killed herself with, and showing all the wounds, and the inside walls of her cube are splattered with her blood. In her bathroom scene, the phrase, "I'm sorry," is visible on the floor in blood. Subtitles also reveal that the blurred hissing speech that announces her arrival is her whispering, "I'm sorry." This was written on her suicide note. When her cube opens, she advances towards Ben Moss, who backs up into an open doorway to get away from her and is killed when it snaps shut on him. I don't know why that was included in there. We'll talk about that after we get there, because there's
How dare you laugh at my sister Virgo's pain? And
I'm not laughing at her pain. I was laughing at the
I know
the Ben
fate
Moss.
of Ben Moss.
Yeah.
Right. Mr. Trustworthy.
So that's Virgo.
Next is the Pilgrimess.
Also, what I'd say that the story of Dana Newman, that sounds about like 80s or 90s maybe. If we're making a timeline.
What with all the surgery and the fact that
Yeah.
like she's in a state where she can like get them repeatedly all over her body and still live. Like, she didn't die in on the surgeon's table. So yeah, that makes me think it must be advanced enough that it was very recent.
Yeah.
She has a very contemporary look too, you know.
Yeah, totally. So the Pilgrimess, Libra,
Right.
she is the ghost of Isabella Smith, an English woman who traveled across the Atlantic and settled in New England during colonial times. She was an outsider to the town she moved into, and this isolated her from the other townsfolk. She was found guilty of witchcraft after livestock began to die mysteriously. When she emerged from a burning barn completely unharmed, she was sentenced to the stocks with no food or drink until she died. As a ghost, she is still locked into her stocks.
Yes.
So it's probably
Clearly.
like 1600s, if it was
Sure.
in those times, yeah. And then 8 and 9. So this is Scorpio and Sagittarius, the great child.
And the dire mother.
Okay,
Zack's
okay,
looking at
Candyman. With the great child being the Scorpio and the dire mother being the Sagittarius. I'm the great child, by the way.
Yes, you are.
They are the ghosts of Margaret and Harold Shelburne. She was an attraction in a carnival due to her being only 3 feet tall. She was raped by the tall man, another carnival freak. Her son Harold, the great child, was born as a result of that rape. He eventually weighed over 300 pounds. Harold, spoiled, was raised as his mother's protector and kept a childlike mindset to the point that he wore diapers his entire life. One day, some of the carnival employees decided to play a little practical joke on Harold and kidnapped his mother. Enraged, he set out to look for her, but when he caught up with the culprits, he found that his mother had accidentally suffocated to death in the bag that she was kept in. Harold killed the kidnappers with an axe, keeping their remains and displaying them for paying customers. Later, when the owner of the carnival found out what Harold had done, he ordered a mob of people to tear Harold apart. Their ghosts are always together, and Harold still wields the axe and wears a bib stained with food that his mother has spoon-fed to him.
Right.
And it also says an alternate version of the story is told in the DVD commentary. It was said that their deaths were caused by the great child rolling over on the tired mother while asleep, thus suffocating her, then him starving to death. I think that the original, or like the first one of him going on the killing spree, that sounds more in line with what I would expect from a Scorpio. the vengeance aspect of it,
from the source,
rather than just being directly. Like, I'm just gonna roll over on my mother and kill her.
and mindlessly.
Yeah. Plus, that doesn't make for a good backstory of just like if you were to do an episode of those ghosts and just being like, well, here they are, and then one night he rolled over on her and then starved to death. The end. Yeah.
I mean, it is tragic, but it's also just kind of like, oh, like anticlimactic, you know? Like if it happened, you'd just be like, oh, that's too bad. And then you just have like, oh god, then it'd just be like, I don't know, American Horror Story Freak Show, where we just have to spend the rest of the episode like following him around motherless and just watching him starve. Oh my god, yeah. I don't want Ryan Murphy to produce this series if it happens. That's all I have to say. Brad Falchuk and Ryan Murphy need to stay away because they love torturing characters they make me care about, and I don't like it. I get tired after a while. Anyway, moving on. The Hammer.
Capricorn. He is the ghost of an African-American blacksmith, George Markley, who lived in a small town in the 1890s. He was wrongfully accused of stealing by a white man from his town, and when threatened with exile, refused to leave town. A gang led by his accuser hung his wife and children and burned their bodies. In revenge, George used his sledgehammer to beat the culprits to death. He was then subjected to a cruel form of frontier justice by the townsfolk, being chased to a tree and executed by having railroad spikes driven into his body with his own sledgehammer. As a final touch, they cut off his hand and attached the sledgehammer, handle and all, to the hand that was cut off. His ghost is seen with the railroad spikes protruding from his body and a sledgehammer for a left hand. Very evocative of Candyman. Yeah.
But also makes a lot of sense why he'd be enraged at the mere like presence of like a bunch of white people in that house.
Well,
mostly
I mean,
white people.
Yeah, because the main family, they're
Greek.
Like, I don't know. Well, because in the like all of the actors, like the leads are Arab American. Is what it says on IMDb here. So Tony Shalhoub, Shannon Elizabeth, and F. Murray Abraham.
Okay.
So
Criticos.
I mean,
Criticos.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds Greek, but I mean, like, oh wow, like how progressive of them at the time to have like a predominantly not white cast for a horror movie, and then their black nanny. Who survives, by the way. Like they're already like breaking the rules
and quits. That's one of my favorite
and
moments.
she don't do windows.
No, yeah. But like I'm not. By the end of the movie, I'm just like, that's why you're in this movie, because this moment is scintillating.
I was glad that she survived.
So was I.
To get away from this for a second. Yeah, like I'm in fact like all of the family. Like I mean, it would have been nice for Rafkin to not die, but at the same time, it's like it was almost like he had to. And I have more to say about that. We'll get through the last two here, and then we'll get to Dennis Rafkin's fate in the movie. But
next, the Jackal.
The Aquarius.
The Aquarius. Wow.
He is the ghost of Ryan.
Wow. No, I'm just anyway. Go on. Sorry, I'm just feeling.
He is the ghost of Ryan Kuhn, who was born in.
How's it spelled?
Kuhn.
That's Kuhn.
Kuhn.
In my experience, Kuhn is Kuhn.
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 Okay. I was thinking like cool when we like cool. Ryan Kuhn, who was born in 1887 to a prostitute. Ryan had an insatiable lust for women, rape, and murdering prostitutes. Wanting to be cured, he committed himself to Borehamwood Asylum, but after attacking a nurse, he was put in a straitjacket and thrown in a padded room. After years of this imprisonment, he went completely insane, scratching at the walls so violently that his fingernails were torn completely off. The doctors kept him permanently bound in his straitjacket, tying it tighter when he acted out, causing his limbs to contort horribly. Still fighting to free himself, Ryan gnawed through the jacket until the doctors finally locked his head in a metal cage and sealed him away in the dark basement cell. There he grew to hate any kind of human contact, screaming madly and cowering whenever approached. When a fire broke out in the asylum, everyone but Ryan escaped. He chose to stay behind and face the fire. As a ghost, his arms are free from his jacket and the bars of his cage are ripped outwards, showing that he may have escaped his bindings again sometime before the fire started, and that his cage may have heated up enough to where he could have ripped it open before the fire consumed him.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can I just say that the character in and of itself is one of the most successful of the movie, because I already find him to be probably the most memorable out of all of them, because he's someone I never forget. I remember that's one of the things I walked away from the movie the first time I saw it was just, oh, the jackal. Yeah. But also just, okay, now that I'm hearing his backstory, he is not just horrific and scary, he is disgusting and beyond like any kind of there will be no sympathy for the jackal. Never. No sympathy for you, sir.
I mean, he wanted to be cured. He committed himself. So he had an understanding of what he was doing. He turned himself in.
Well, good for him.
I think that there's redemption in there somehow.
I'm disgusted, but it's okay.
He is the most terrifying. Like I admit, he's the most iconic and the most terrifying. Like that first moment as Shannon Elizabeth, Kathy, is like putting on the glasses. Yeah, she's putting on the glasses, and you see him just through the lens the first time. Like that freaked me out. And they actually didn't use that in the trailer. In the original trailer, it was the pilgrimess who appears in the glasses when she does that. So maybe they were just trying to keep the reveal a good secret for showing false imagery in the trailer. I like that.
Me too.
So anyway, and even there's a line that Matthew Lillard has in the movie where he's just like, oh, the jackal's out, and it's just like he's the I forget the line exactly, but it's just like basically he's the worst one. Like if the kid's down here alone, like he doesn't stand a chance against the jackal.
Yeah, right.
And then the
juggernaut,
the Pisces.
Yes.
He is the ghost of a serial killer named Horace Breaker Mahoney. Standing 7 feet tall, he was of such grotesque height and appearance. Well, that's rude. That everyone ostracized him as a child. His mother abandoned him at birth, so his father raised him, putting him to work in the junkyard crushing old cars. After his father died, Horace was left on his own and soon went mad. He would pick up female hitchhikers and drive them back to his junkyard, then tear them apart with his bare hands and feed them to his dogs. One day, he picked up an undercover female police officer who called for backup for a SWAT team to surround the junkyard. Since close combat was impossible, the police instead struck the yard and arrested the giant. However, Horace broke free from his cuffs, and 3 officers lost their lives. Quickly, 5 SWAT officers took out their guns and brought Horace down in a hail of bullets. When he finally went down, they shot an extra round into him just to be safe. His ghost still shows bullet holes all over his clothing and the wound that finished him. That is very evocative of the opening of Jason Goes to Hell. I just like think like undercover FBI, like, you know, they set a trap of just like this innocent like female hitchhiker just like, yeah, I'll get a ride. Right. And they're like, yeah, I'm FBI. They should have blown him up.
No, well, who knows? Maybe they did, eventually. But no, this is the thing. He's one of the least memorable ones for me. It made me sad that he was the one that they were trying to catch. I mean, obviously I guess they were trying to catch them in order or whatever. But the fact that they were trying to catch him in the beginning and that he was featured so little throughout the rest of the movie was kind of sad for me. But the thing that I think makes me the saddest about this movie is the fact that on the face of it, every one of these ghosts seemed to have... Actually, I'm going to go against what I said about all the living characters, or the characters who we see alive at some point, about them like having no depth to mine. The ghosts, as characters, seem to have like boundless depths to mine, and endless opportunities to interest us and to thusly terrify us. And or even just entertain us with their backstory. Like, I get nothing but enrichment from hearing you read these descriptions, and I can't help but think the movie is barely 90 minutes long. So I would have usually I want them to shave like a good 10 or 15 minutes off a movie because of too much whatever exposition or, you know, too much suspense building that isn't done successfully. This one, if we could have just spent an extra 10 minutes or so, just kind of like, not even necessarily giving exposition to these ghosts so much as giving each one of them kind of like an opportunity to really take the stage and display how they disturb the air differently than the other ghosts. Because one thing I will say about them, a lot of them have a very similar kind of, you know, and then just jump cut to, yeah, I'm not here, now I'm here, and now, you know, and it's just, yeah, it would have been nice to have stylistically and cinematically just like a little bit more to discern them from each other. I think it only would have helped the movie, and I like the movie, but I think I could have
the ghost that was the strength of the movie. Yes, and it shows through, but it's just like that would have been something like that they you know, I don't want to say that anything should have been done any differently other than maybe they could have done it like redrafted it another time or two, just to make the story and the characters a little bit tighter, and also just like remove the annoying sound design and flashy editing that, you know, might cause someone to have an epileptic
seizure.
Yeah. But everything you said, like that's why I think that this would work so fantastically as a show, because you have the opportunity to go back and establish each one of these characters and what they mean to the lore of the Arcanum.
Yeah. Or Arcanum, maybe, I don't know, whatever. Yeah. Who cares?
And then obviously the 13th ghost, as we find out in the movie, is Arthur, or like his sacrifice. Like it's like a human sacrifice that's needed. But I mean, like, he doesn't die, so I think it was just like an act of love. Like, that's what it was. Which, I mean, like, thematically, like, you could still work that into the movie. I just thought that it was very rushed, like, just the way that they handled it in terms of the story.
Oh,
I don't think it was ineffective. Yeah, I don't think it was ineffective because everything that was going on, like, you have the ghosts all standing around in the circle.
That was pretty cool.
Turning around, like, this looks awesome. Like, I love everything about that.
But also the fact that, like, his children, and I use the term loosely, I don't know how old Shannon Elizabeth Kathy is supposed to be, but the fact that Kathy and what's his name? Is it Dennis? Bobby, who Dennis is
Bobby's World. I just like.
But the fact that, like, Kathy and Bobby are, like, sitting there, like, hunched underneath all these, like, spheres and everything. It is very kind of like it creates visual interest for sure. But the fact that it's still in keeping with this kind of like saccharine family quality they have, just going like, "Daddy, please, Daddy, help us, Daddy, please." I mean, and also the way they set up. Now that we're talking about Bobby for the first time, I really eat up the fact that they don't do anything to mask his speech impediment. He may even be playing it up. His just lines like, "Leave me alone, you guys, I'm recording." And my favorite, "Our mom got boned in a file." Boned to death in a file. But and it's so manipulative. It's so evocative of just kind of like child stars, especially for me in the 90s when, you know, I don't know, when commercialism was really just kind of like, "Hey, it's a movie, it's about a kid, and he's spunky, he's got a speech impediment. What do you think?" And that's who I think Bobby is, but I think he's also like a comment on that character. Like, he is that little boy in that idealistic family that is now crushed at the loss of, you know, his mother and the maternal figure of the family. And it really just fits in alignment with everything the Criticos are about.
Well, the kids, I mean, like, that's basically all. They just have to be there to drive Arthur to do what he needs to do. Because, like, I mean, they don't really add anything to, like, Kathy, like, no knock at Shannon Elizabeth, but all she really does in the movie is she's just like, "Wow, this house is awesome." And she's, like, splashing water on her face. It's just like, because that's what you do.
Motion.
It's just like, water, like... This house, look at this water. This is expensive water. This like Evian coming out of the taps. I'm gonna splash it on my face.
All I could think is because their bills are so, you know, such an issue, and because, you know, like, money, even though they can obviously afford Maggie, I still don't understand that.
Yeah, what is she? And they don't even need her. Like, what is she doing? She's like, she sits there. She's not making breakfast. She's got like rollers in her hair, and Kathy's
teaching Bobby how to curse.
And she's just being like, "Oh,"
and Kathy's making breakfast.
So it's just like, why do you need her right now? I mean, like, I guess maybe she's like the au pair, like, she specifically takes care of Bobby. But then in that regard, like, what's all the toys lying around and the scooter? That was another holdover from the original, because something I noticed is that the boy Buck in that, the son, he was always on roller skates in the house, and they were like, "Don't ride your roller skates." So it's just like, now they've upgraded it to a scooter for Bobby.
But also, maybe it's supposed to, I mean, again, I'm mining depths that probably aren't there, but maybe if we're going to go there with like character motivation and everything, maybe it was Arthur's way to try and like fill like some kind of gap that he felt with his wife's absence. It's just, we just need an older woman, you know, just another woman in the house. And we'll hire this woman, Maggie. She seems like she'll be great. She'll bring some spirit and some life to the house. And then she's just sitting there eating breakfast with all of them, just kind of. But
she has some of the best lines in the movie. That I love when she says, when they're like, "What's going on here?" And she's just like, "Did the lawyer split?"
You're right. I also love the fact that Maggie's
Raw
kind
Digga.
of default. Raw Digga. I love that her.
This was one of her first and last movie roles. Like, she's a musical artist. I guess she was just like, it's not for me. It's just in terms of
because she did the song at the end of the end credits, right? That runs during the end credits. Yeah, sounded like her. And but one thing I love is that Maggie's kind of default reaction to anything remotely emotional in a revealing kind of sense is you always see her in the background of the shots just cupping her face, just covering her. We're like, oh, this is emotional. But
and really, like, Maggie's the one that kind of saves the day, because if it wasn't for
totally
her,
is.
Messing up with
her turntable skills. Hearing you do that is the highlight of my day.
She's the Ripley of 13 Ghosts.
Right. She really is.
Yeah.
She really is. But also, like, to piggyback on what you were saying about Kathy, you're absolutely right. I feel like she did everything around her new chosen room, but spin around and sing a song, you know? Like, it's funny to me because I feel like, again, they were set up with this very idealistic kind of life, and even though their lives took a pendulous turn from this idealism of like grinning American family to like this tense dysfunction of real life America, they all of them actually, even in the trip over, like Arthur looks over at Kathy. He's just kind of like, I feel like this could really, change things for us, don't you? And
no,
I'm
I think
like,
he says, I think his line is like, it looks like things are starting to get better. It was almost like there was an inflection. It was like a question mark. And it's like, this morning you literally had like all this debt and you spilled coffee on yourself and you were yelling at your kids. And it was just like, things are starting. It was like, it's almost like this is too good to be true. But he's just like, it seems like things are getting better.
Just like they're all too eager
doing it in like a Ross Geller voice there. I think we're going
they're so anxious to just jump right back into this like blissful glee.
Yeah.
Like the house has already solved all their problems before they've ever even seen it.
Which is totally that's such a human like emotion and reaction to have to this scenario. It's like it is too good to be true, but they want it to be good. And that's why like the enthusiasm at the beginning when he's just like, we're moving in. And he's like, I didn't want to say this in front of the kids, but like I can't afford the taxes on this place. And so it's like he was being realistic. I think like if there's anything that like annoys me about the character of Arthur, is just like his skepticism after like shit has already happened. Like you've literally seen your daughter get pulled down a hall by an invisible force and like her like shirt and bra like clawed open. That he's just like,
she's lifted
this is
into the
crazy
air.
Yeah, this is crazy talk. And he's just like, I don't believe, like, and it's just like, what is it gonna take other than now the jackal coming and like scratching your back for you to believe that what's going on? Like that's the thing. Like I mean obviously like I personally believe in weird shit, but I mean even if I wasn't, even if there's something in life that I didn't believe in and someone was just like, I need you to at least like entertain the idea, I'd be like, okay, like let me at least understand, like hear your point and try to get on your wavelength of what you're saying, just so I can at least have a little bit more information for whatever, even if I don't believe you, that I at least need to understand you to navigate the situation if I'm still with you in this house. And I feel like he's just so like, he's just poo-poos everything. He's just like, I just want to find my kids and get out of here. And it's just like, well, how, like everything's locked up. Like these people clearly know more about the situation than you do. Like maybe at least try to understand. And I think they kind of play that out a little bit longer than they needed to.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think another thing that gets played out, I mean, a lot of it was happening to the point where all of a sudden something new happened, and I was like, "Oh, this is the most interesting thing to happen in a while." It was all the just the shifting of the doors. Like, yes, it is cool, but the fact that I don't know how much screen time we spend just kind of watching them maneuver around these doors, and it's
like Hogwarts in there, just like it's always moving.
It is, but again, like if I got a little bit more variation in the way these spirits disturb the air, then it would be, it would be interesting. It'd be like, oh, what's going to happen now? What kind of, how is this one going to try to kill you? It's not just going to be like the same old kind of like, stop,
I mean, at least
I like jump cut.
I like that they established that there's the Latin written on the wall, like on the glass, and then on the floors as well, because that at least established, like they actually like set rules, the filmmakers and the storytellers, of just like how these ghosts operated, because the ghosts like it. I mean, first of all, they're all corporeal. They can, they're not, it's not like they're putting a hand and it's going through you. They're actually like physically present. But also like, they can't go through walls. Yeah, they can't go through walls. So it's like the ghosts in this universe, like that's how they operate. So I did find it funny that like all of these ghosts are kind of like stuck in the basement, but the angry princess like gets out, and then all of a sudden she's already upstairs. But I guess maybe that's because she was the first one to get released, that she was able to go upstairs before any of the like the stuff, or like any the walls and shifting.
Once Ben Moss was out of the running, she was free to kind of like move about the house as she pleased. But even like after Kalina's bogus introduction of the idea of the sacrifice of the broken heart and everything, one of the most interesting thing to happen to me for a while was Dennis's offer to help find out if Arthur's kids are still alive. I don't know. It's a character that I feel needed to be played by Matthew Lillard because we got laughs when we needed them. We felt empathy for him when we needed it, and we also understand any impulse he feels and wants to follow up on, and any reticence, like any kind of hesitation he feels, I trust.
Yeah.
But
you know
the
what
fact
I'm
that he's willing to
about
make that personal choice, I really appreciated.
Because
but,
like it's almost like any contact he has with people, like, because he tries to touch Cyrus at the beginning, he's like, don't you be getting any ideas or something, and when Arthur touches him, he's like, don't touch me, because it's like, I can, feel your history. And there's even a point when he's like pretending to be the power guy, and the lawyer is just like, what are you doing here? And he's like, oh, don't, hands, like, don't touch me, sort of thing. But it's just like, at the beginning of the movie, he already had like weird vibes from Kalina. So it's like maybe her shift, or like her turn, could have been at least clued to us, a little bit early. I don't think they did a good enough job, because he was still sort of Cyrus's lackey at that point, and he's just like, I'm gonna, like, fuck you guys, you're coming here you're like the PETA for human spirits.
Right.
Greenpeace or whatever he said. But yeah, like he and even when Kalina showed up, just like, what's she doing here? And it's just like, maybe we should have paid more attention to what Rafkin was feeling about her, the people around him.
Yeah, maybe.
I wanted to. Well, okay, let's talk about the lawyer
Ben Moss
for a minute here.
Jesus.
Because that. Okay, a lot of people, like, they talk about Ghost Ship, and I feel like the only time I ever hear any, like, positive thing about Ghost Ship is the opening scene.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, it's a great opening scene. I don't know if it's, like, out of, like, all the Dark Castle movies, is, like, my favorite opening scene. I just think that it's, like, it's so much better than the rest of the movie that it's like, okay. But, I don't know, like, I lean more towards this, because it's a very similar death of just getting sliced in half with the doors.
Sure.
That I'm like, I would probably rather watch, if I had to, like, go back, and I'm just like, I have one scene I could watch, the death on the ship, or like all the people, or the scene with Ben Moss. And I would choose the Ben Moss one, because that's actually, like, it's frightening. It's still very visually well done. Whereas the Ghost Ship one, like, I find that kind of funny, actually, with all the people, like, getting split in half and then crawling around looking for the other half of their body. I mean, it's good. It's like, it's really well done, but I just, like, just in terms of, like, the tone of the movie, I don't think it fit. Whereas, like, everything that's happening here with the lawyer stealing and being like, oh, I'm sorry, because it was almost like a thing, like, he was mocking her 5 seconds earlier, and then it's just like, that's what you get. And it's like, she didn't actually kill him, she was just, like, advancing on him threateningly. We don't even know if she was going to, but
I don't know either, but I love the fact that it feels pitch perfect as far as, like, because I did feel everything I think the movie wanted me to feel about that character in particular. I mean, from the get-go, they've cast it well, because the second they open that door, I don't trust this man.
No, he looks very untrustworthy.
And the fact that, like, he chooses to antagonize Dennis so early on, when he finally, like, discloses, like, who he really is and everything like that, and that the way he's talking about him, I'm like, I don't like people who talk about other people that way, even if they are just trying to cover their ass. But I think you really believe things like that about people too. And then the final nail in the coffin for me, aside from all of the two-facedness and everything like that, even more so than that, is the lack of respect for the ghosts.
Yeah.
The fact that he's like walking past them like they're, I mean, I've seen people do this in zoos and like exhibits and things like that, where they think because something is encased or trapped or whatever, that they can make fun of it and they can taunt it, even if they're not like tapping the glass or whatever. But just, I don't know, a lack of respect. It bothers me. And I could never walk through that basement without almost dobbiting and just kind of like going, peace be with you, you know? I mean, maybe
it's almost like walking down the cell block of like Silence of the Lambs. Like we're gonna
right.
all these people.
Exactly.
Like, yeah. I just liked how he was. I just liked how he was kind of like, oh shit, like the tables have turned. He's like, you know, I was only kidding, sort of thing. Like, you know, almost like this like pleading for forgiveness, sort of thing, and just like the sheer like kismet of it. I don't like how to explain.
He may as well
like, have. It was all meant to be. He deserved that.
Yeah. It couldn't have been better if he would have just put his hands up and go like, "No, I'm gay. I mean, if it helps." And then
she does like a head tilt and just like
she does a head tilt. That would be great. I would really appreciate that. Also, Bobby pisses me off because he didn't listen to his mom. He heard his mom's voice and she was telling him not to go down there. And
well,
anyway.
To be fair, there's a lot of voices that are being spoken, and they're all whispering. So
I would know my mother's voice,
but he was more so like it was just like, Mom, like is that you? Like just trying to, you know, like the natural inclination of a child of that age, like they're gonna follow the voice and just be like, what's going on? Like, what are you trying to say? Like I know I would. I probably still do that. I would probably still do that at this age. So
right.
I mean,
if he's old enough to record with his radio, then he's old enough to mind his mother. But anyway, I'm just making fun of his speech impediment. Yeah. I'm sorry.
One thing that I wanted to point on, I thought of, and I couldn't see it any other way. Why did Dennis have to sacrifice himself? I was getting like flashbacks of Titanic, of Rose sitting on that door. Just like was more than enough room for both of him and Arthur to stand behind that glass, and he was just kind of like, no, you stand here, I'll be okay. And it's just like,
because it was foretold.
It was foretold.
He knew he couldn't escape. He couldn't escape his fate. He had a vision.
Okay, regardless, it's
he must know enough. He can't escape his own demise, so he chose to move into his fate, to step into it, as opposed to fighting.
I still think that there was
more dire consequences can come. Sorry.
Yeah, I think that there was enough room for them, just as I think there was enough room for Jack to be on that door with Rose. But I will point out that because this movie does hit like a lot of the same beats that House on Haunted Hill does. Just in because like the lawyer disappears and it's just like, where'd the lawyer go? And then we see him going downstairs, and that was the same thing in House on Haunted Hill with Bridget Wilson's character, where they're like, where's the TV host or whatever? And then she's like down, like creeping down into the basement. And then this like Matthew Lillard is to this movie what Chris Kattan was to the House on Haunted Hill, of just being like the neurotic person who knows what's going on and nobody will listen to him. And then he comes back as a ghost at the end and saves the day, or just like offers some parting wisdom as Matthew Lillard does in this movie. But I don't know. Actually,
one line that actually made me laugh my ass off, and it shouldn't have. It's really mean. Yeah. But just the fact that like when Cyrus's ghost is talking to Arthur, and he's just like, that's why I chose you, nephew. You and your pathetic family. It's so mean, but I just thought like, though. I know it was like almost Disney villainy. It was like, I'm not just going to kill your children. I'm going to call them pathetic to your face as I kill them.
That's like, okay, like that's how you should make a Disney villain in a horror movie. Not like John Voight playing Saron in Anaconda. You can believe me. You can believe it. Yeah.
But we're still talking about him, so but no,
he's one of like the lower tier villains. Like Uncle Cyrus would be like way up there. He'd he'd be like, with the ranks of Jafar and
right.
all of them. Yeah.
But I do have to say, I will never forget that Jon Voight was in Anaconda. And I love F. Murray Abraham. Amadeus is one of my top 10 movies all time. But I forgot that F. Murray Abraham was even in this. So when it happened. But again, I loved his little will with his little kind of Ouija board background. Yeah. It looked like a screensaver that he was doing his video will off of.
Do you remember that? Do you remember the computer game Myst?
No.
It's like it was like an adventure, like point and click thing, and there's puzzles and you go to like, you warp to all these things, and there's like books and stuff, and it just had this very like opulent look to it, and that actually reminded me of or like watching the movie reminded me of Myst, because there's like all this stuff with just like, this is my life's work, because they'd have like these people show up and like they'd open books and there'd be like a video of them in the book. And it was just like, and they were all like pretending to be good and virtuous, and there was like fortunes for you, but of course they were all evil, and we're gonna fuck you over in the end. But it's just like, even the house, it feels like that environment of just like moving through this house, and it's just like, I'm gonna go click on this area here and go see what's up there. But I'm
sad that I missed Myst.
Missed. Yeah, very 90s game, like, computer game.
Fun time.
Yeah, I wouldn't forget that F. Murray Abraham was in this, and I guess like this is not his typical caliber of movie that he would do. No. And I remember like hearing on the commentary tracks, they're just like, yeah, like he knew what the material was. I think it was just like he needed the money, but it was just like, I'm going to just make the most of this. Like, I'm gonna have fun with this role, and totally. you feel that like everyone was professional on this, just in terms of like. Of the actors and I'm sure the crew as well. So yeah.
And I really appreciate just the way they wrap things up. The fact that like I didn't mind. I mean, I don't want Dennis to expire, but the fact that it was manifest before him, I'm like, well, then there's your fate. So the fact that he gets to come back as a ghost and give his final nudge.
Is he maybe the 13th ghost?
Maybe. See, this is the thing. I think it's open to interpretation. Like, message us with who you think the 13th ghost is if you're listening. But, but I just had a question.
Definitely not Kalina.
No.
Okay. What's your question? We'll talk about her demise.
Yeah. No. The question just that scrolled across my head as Dennis was giving Arthur that final nudge, just kind of like leaning. Kind of like that cop around the corner, well, back in the old days, not anymore, but I mean, just like that, that with just standing there, like leaning against his, he
was like cleaning his glasses or something, like.
Yeah, he was on his beat, just kind of like keeping an eye out, making sure things all happened the way they needed to and everything. Mm-hmm. And I just thought, is anyone more lovable than Matthew Lillard? I don't think so. In that moment, I couldn't think of anybody. And I just thought that's just something he brings onto the screen.
Gosh, maybe like they should bring back Stu,
Or bring back Dennis in this one. Make him the 13th ghost in the Netflix series, or whatever. But I also appreciated the fact that Mom gets to be pretty again. And of course, I love that Maggie quits very vocally. And that's the last
I mean, I don't believe that she does quit. I mean, she just quits like that night, but they probably if you stayed around after the credits, they'd probably like all go out onto the front lawn as soon as they figure out how to get off of that like center thing and like the middle of that big hole.
Because she is gonna have to help them get off that thing.
Yeah, she can't just leave. But I can just see her like sitting out on the front lawn and just being like, come on, Maggie, you can't quit now. Like, we have to go home. We still got bills. They didn't make any money here. Like, the house got...
No.
Unless there's, like, some insurance thing. But I can't see that working out for them because it was, like, the house that exploded itself. But,
Well, Arthur can write a best-selling book. An account of what happened.
Sure.
And they have the records, like, whatever wasn't demolished in the explosion. Yeah. They can, like,
that will be the Netflix series. It'll be, like... Arthur is now, he's written a book about this and they're adapting it into a series.
Yeah.
How meta.
I'd watch that.
Yeah.
That sounds very Stephen King, actually. Yeah. Get him on it.
Yeah. I did want to jump back to Kalina for a second there, because actually there is one part of, I mean, a lot of the things that are annoying are, come with her character, just the reveal. But I especially hated her demise. And not so much just because of, like, I mean, like, of a few reasons, really. Just because it was one of those things there's just, like, you slug. Like, I'm done with you now, so I'm going to, like, trap you into this wall thing. And he's just like, yeah, I told you that human sacrifice is part of the thing. It's just like, okay, you were stupid. You got betrayed by, this person. Mm-hmm. Apparently, like, the Damon... at the beginning, that was her fiance. It wasn't explained anywhere in the thing, but I guess like in the production notes.
Oh, I thought they were married because it's two straight people, and I always assume a man and a woman.
Well, apparently, allegedly, like it was the fiance, but just like you murdered your fiance.
Yeah.
Help! I can't seem to find my fiance. I don't know. Sorry. Seinfeld there for you, but
yes.
Like just. Oh, fuck. Yeah, I hate her, but the death itself, I guess, like, it was originally a lot gorier. Like, there was, like, maybe even, like, Hellraiser levels of just, like, practical effects of, like, gore, of just, like, a head getting squished together. And it even, like, it's such a whimper of, like, it, like, just the way it goes out, where it's just, like, of just her head, like, squishing like a grape.
Satisfied.
With, like, the
I was just
fake...
like, yeah, that's what you get. I don't know.
Yeah,
I didn't want
totally.
it to be any more ornate than it was, because
totally.
I didn't want it to take up that much room in my movie. So,
but that was the thing. It was just like, as long as you're gonna be here, you may as well, die effectively. And
die
they did.
well.
Yeah, they did film it like that way. It was like a little bit more elaborate, and they removed it because they were afraid that they were gonna get hit with a NC-17. So I don't know where that footage exists, if it does anywhere, but it should have been included.
I'd watch it.
Yeah,
I would watch it. Yeah, just to see her die more. Sure.
And there was all this other stuff with her, because I guess like that was the thing, like the disappearing children. Because I mean, at least with Bobby, like that was done as sort of like a setup to scare the rest of the characters and incite them into looking for him. So we didn't need to see like what happened. But when Kathy went missing, like she was literally not even a foot away from them, and Kalina was just like, yes, look at all this information in the book. And I guess, like, I don't know, did Uncle Cyrus sneak up and he's just like, I'm gonna grab you, Cat, or just like how that would happen without her making any noise. It was one of those stupid things in the movie where it's just like, where did Kathy go? I'm just like, okay. Like that was the movie being stupid, but then you have to imagine that like Kalina had both of the kids tied up somewhere, or even if they weren't tied up, they were like in one of the ghost encasements, and then she's just like,
sure,
come on, I'm gonna tie you up and put like, just, I'm like, okay. There's like a movie there, or like deleted scenes of just like Kalina like setting the bait of the children on the thing, because he's like, tie up the children, or and she's like, I don't know.
She probably would have been. Yeah, she probably would have just ingratiated herself to them too and acted like, come this way, it's the only way out. I'm the person who designed this house. Yeah. And then they'd be like, I can get you to your father, and then whatever, and then frying pan, bang, and then just roll them into the cupboard with the other one. That's what I imagine happening.
Totally. Anyway,
anything else?
I think I'm good. I think we can get to. I mean, unless, do you have anything else to say?
No, I'm good.
Okay, let's get to the cherry picker then. Okay, so last week we did The Exorcist. Who deserves to die the most in The Exorcist? I said Burke Dennings, and you said Uncle John, or you said Karis's uncle, but
that's what he was credited as on IMDb, but he's Uncle John.
Maybe in the book he's Uncle John.
Yeah, maybe.
But anyway, the people have spoken on Patreon, Instagram, and YouTube. We have 115 for Burke Dennings versus 219 for Uncle John. And I think it's funny because, like, when I post these things on Instagram, you go and you post the same thing, and you're just like, it's like, nobody will know who Uncle John is. You need to be specific. And you're just like, Karis's uncle. And he did, and like, this is what he did. He like put I don't know, you had like a whole description because you were afraid.
Vote for this loser because like he put his sister in an asylum and blamed his priest nephew for it. Something like that. Yeah.
I just think it's funny that you're just like, nobody will know who that is. I need to like get... But apparently...
But it's also because there's no case made. I want to make my case, you know. It's my story. I shall make my case. And, you know, and if somebody sees it there, then maybe they'll want to lean in my direction. I don't know.
Okay. Well, Sierra Sindrell says, I voted Uncle John... mostly because I think Eddie deserves to win one of these, and I liked how passionate he was with his explanation.
Oh, how sweet. Thank you.
Yeah. But that's funny that, like, you've won plenty. But then Jason Slaughter says, Zack always gets less votes on these polls, I swear.
Oh.
So it's just like, what? Who's... I haven't been keeping tally.
Neither have I.
Yeah, we don't...
We should look back and know for...
No, I think it's better if we don't. It's just more... It's, you know...
Oh, all right. Okay.
If you want to and just, like, have bragging rights and be like, I won another one. And, like,
well, just to find out who, you know, not bragging rights, but just, like, who is in the lead. I don't know, because I don't know. I don't really care, but it'd be interesting since people are bringing it up.
Yeah.
Go on.
Corey Weston says, I need to rewatch the movie and reread the book. I don't remember an Uncle John. Oh, there you go. But I know it's heavily hinted at, implied and theorized that Burke molested Reagan. So just off that deserves death. So is that a thing? Like in the book, it was implied that that's why.
No, it's. I don't think it's even a thing in the book so much as it's something that has become part of the discussion. Yeah. There are people who question whether she's actually possessed or not, or whether it's just a manifestation of like her hostility towards Burke for molesting her. I would have brought it up on the pod, but we were talking about so much. There's still so much more to cover. But that's something I actually saw like a 90-minute video essay. Talking about it in depth and citing like, you know, the interactions between Reagan and Chris, where Reagan is, you know, like kind of like masking her, I guess, hostility or her animosity toward Burke Dennings, and even the way she asks him, it kind of creeps me out now when I watch her ask, "You like him, don't you?" You know, and it's like, oh, gross. Yeah. So anyway, but I mean, it's just part of the discussion now. Yeah.
Yeah. Savage Visuals says The Exorcist is a gem, and bye Uncle John. I don't like uncles. Okay.
Wow. Okay. So I probably didn't even.
You like opened up some. You opened up some wounds there. I'll just say.
I got the uncle haters vote.
Marshmallow says, shame on me, never watched it, but Exorcism is not my stick. I watched Stigmata quite some time ago, and although that's something different, I can't really find too much joy in these possessed or evil spirit stories.
Okay. There's
fair
art.
enough. I think I've seen Stigmata once, so I don't remember it all. I just remember...
I don't remember it either.
Patricia Arquette, and there's like a scene where she's in the bathtub.
Okay, I don't remember.
Yeah, anyway, so I would assume that The Exorcist is 1,000 times better than Stigmata. But anyway, you get first dibs with the 13 Ghosts. Oh, also, we sort of briefly... broached the subject last week. I don't think we'll have an issue this week, but just in terms of like what qualifies as a contender for who deserves to die the most, and we were saying that you can't pick like it needs to be human. We didn't really discuss the rules, but I mean,
we didn't really agree on anything. Yeah. But if Zach wants to make rules, I'm willing to.
I think that there should be rules. If you're, you know,
so
like no zombies, no like no creatures or like it needs to be people.
Human.
Yeah.
Human. Okay, cool.
Okay.
Because I have a human. So
good.
my choice for this week is Kalina. And simply put, Kalina is a loser. She is a spineless sellout who betrayed a dopey family's trust, all just so some old white man could rule hell. So she's a dumb fuck up. and she's not. Her death isn't interesting. I love Embeth Davis, but I forgot she was in this movie too. And then I forgot the reveal that she was actually like in league with Cyrus the whole time. And I think she's actually probably, if I'm going to criticize the writing for any of these characters, I think she's probably the worst written character also in the movie. So you could pluck her out and find some other way to like get Cyrus what he needs or something, and I think it would make it maybe even more interesting. Let one less person to spend time with. So yeah, I choose Kalina to die. You?
Well, that was my first choice, so I'll have to fall back on another. And that's the beauty of the cherry picker. See, the thing is, it's not always like who deserves to die the most, or just like who I would want to die the most, because like I enjoy Uncle Cyrus so much as just like this evil cartoonish villain that I don't want to see him. I want to see him like live on and just like plan more like how am I gonna open up the Arcanum next time, and like like I want him to live on and just like keep tormenting this family, and for them to just be like, oh, it's evil Uncle Cyrus again. So I'm actually gonna go with Ben Moss, the lawyer, just be simply put, he was also duplicitous, driven by greed, which I mean like that's all well and good. People need to make money, but the fact that it's like he put this family into a situation, he knew that there were murderous ghosts in this house, did not tell them about it. That was like the difference between the original. Like the lawyer straight up told them like, oh yeah, the house is haunted, just so you know. And they're like, we don't care, we'll move in. But yeah, he didn't tell them about the ghosts. And then he was just like really like rude to them, or just like taunting them from the other side, where he knew that he was safe. And then the moment that it was reversed, and he was out in the same space with them, it was just like, oh, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean it, So I'm gonna go with Ben Moss.
Yeah,
his greed literally started, like him lifting up the briefcase started the machine of the house. I mean, I'm sure that like Uncle Cyrus would have done it his own way, but it was almost like dominoes, where it's just like, I'm just gonna push the lawyer, and he's gonna go and he's gonna hit the next tile, and then just create this huge effect. So yeah, for my money, I'm gonna go with Ben Moss. So there you have it. You've got Kalina. I can't remember what her last name is, but it'll be spelled out on the thing. And then Ben Moss. I care. I want full names. So you can
deserve a last name.
You can vote in the YouTube community section on the Cherry Picker. You can vote on the Cherry Picker Pod on Instagram, and you can vote on Patreon if you are a Patreon supporter. If you would like to become a Patreon supporter, that goes a long way in helping improve the quality of these podcasts, and you do get to watch or listen to the podcast several days before, typically like the weekend before, so you got a head start on everyone else. And we do have a new patron supporter, so I just want to shout out Death Reven, no, my bad, Darth Reven, or Reven. I'm gonna say Darth Reven. If I'm wrong, we'll print a retraction. But thank you for coming aboard and offering us your support. And also, as always, big thank you to Andre Felix for his efforts and in editing these episodes. And I just wanted to remind everyone, if you are listening, that you can also watch the podcast on YouTube if you would like to see our faces and what's going on. I'm wearing glasses right now because we're just to be thematic with the 13 ghosts. But if you
I'm just tired and I have a hungry cat. Sorry if you can hear her meowing. That's not your cat.
I didn't hear anything.
It's probably mine. Oh, okay. She's been mewing for like the last 5 minutes because she's hungry. So
Okay,
it's
anyway.
good that we're wrapping this up.
If you would like to watch us, it's the Cherry Picker on YouTube. And if you are watching this on YouTube, you can go down to the descriptions. The RSS feed is listed there, and you can go listen to us. And then that way you can do other things while you're listening to us, so you're not stuck behind the screen. And also, we do have a review. It's
fabulous!
Real quick, read that on Apple Podcasts. From Sheem100. Great content. I love listening to the podcast on my way to work. Zack and Ed chemistry keeps me entertained, and I like how Zack breaks rule number 3 by saying he'll be right back. I've been breaking that rule for a while now.
As long as you've had a YouTube channel,
Yeah.
right?
Totally. Anyway, thank you so much for the review. If you guys also want to go on Apple Podcasts and leave a review, it does go a long way in helping the podcast get recognized algorithmically. I don't know how any of that works, but it definitely helps us, even if you want to just go there and leave a score. What do we got going on next week? Do you know?
Is next week the series?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Next week we're doing season 1 of Chucky.
Chucky. Yeah.
Chucky.
Real excited for that. If you want to follow either of us on social media separately, other than following us on the Cherry Picker Pod, Eddie, where can they find you? And
you can find me on me and Des, my cat that I'm holding right now. She's like, I don't want to be on camera. I didn't agree to this, Papa. You can find me at Edward is Truth. That's my handle, all one word. Yeah, that's where I am.
And you can find me on Instagram at RetroBitchface, also one word, or Twitter at ZackCherry8. Anyway, that's all we got for you today. Thank you so much for listening. And do you want to say it?
Yeah. We'll be right back.
We'll be right back.